overwhelm people with all the different options and just trying to feel where they're at. But sometimes people, it's like I get all these messages and I'm like, well, deciding, do I send them a low ticket? But this person actually sounds like they're asking for my middle. Like they actually want more support.
So in every episode, I have them in the show notes. And here's how I would articulate it.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to another Launch Your Private podcast episode. We are doing another coaching episode. And today we have Dr. Gina Terinoni. She's a holistic fertility and endometriosis doctor. And we're going to talk to her a little bit about traffic, building traffic and excitement for a lead magnet that she has that is a private podcast. So we're probably going to dissect a little bit of the private podcast, see what content she has in there, think about the messaging and positioning and making sure it's leading to her offer suite. Welcome, Dr. Terinoni. We're excited to see you today and hang out with you.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be with you.
Yay.
Yes.
We were just catching up with her a little bit and getting the lowdown on her biz and where she's at and making sure we could be really focused today and help her, get more people listening, more earballs, not eyeballs. We do earballs over here.
Yeah. We were talking earlier and just to say, like, this is the best. When I came across Hello Audio, I didn't find the podcast until after I was already using it, which is hilarious. And then I was like, no, I got to binge. And I was binging like 10, 15 hours in the first month. So I'm looking to put it into action.
Nice. So. And you get personal coaching for it. Very cool.
This is awesome.
All right. So why don't you give us just a little recap of like how your biz is set up, just so people listening can kind of put context to that as they, hear us coaching you as well.
Okay, great. So I closed my brick and mortar. I had 30 staff and a big business, and I closed it over COVID time, or Rona, call it the Rona, right? So we don't get screened out. And anyway, some life changes, decided to homeschool my son. He's got autism, ADHD. That's a big factor. Like I was just locked up into all these big building, like creating courses and all this software. And I was like, through the roof of buying every course creator. And now I'm like, I know way too much tech. You know what I mean? But I couldn't get people to use it. So when I found you, I was like, people will listen. They don't want to sit. After the pandemic, first people thought it was cool. They were on Zoom and all the stuff. And then the pandemic happened and it was like, my God, if I have to seriously like put makeup on or whatever, one more time, and just sit at my desk. Like I'm not a stationary person.
Yes.
What I want to do is clean the house or cook dinner and listen. It's like my private time. So anyway, that's how I found you. But my setup is I have created a ton of courses and programs and they're interactive. And I was using a lot of the big program storage areas like ClickFunnels I use for funnels, but I was also trying, it was too complicated. So then I added in Circle, didn't like that. And then I went into Mighty Networks, spent a year and a half trying to figure that out. But here's the thing, I figured it out and I built these big, gigantic, beautiful courses and people would buy them and they would not log in. Yeah. So when I was meeting with them once a month or twice a month, I'm like, okay, watch the first 2 modules before our next call. And they wouldn't. And I'm like, what is going, so I had to repeat everything. That's fine. I don't mind. I want you to have a little bit of where I'm coming from and then come to the call so I can really help you to implement.
Yes.
So I was spending too much time explaining the basics when I wanted them to be like, yes, this is, like get started. So now I'm at a place where I have office suites set up for low ticket, middle ticket, and then high ticket. And it's going to look like DIY for low ticket and then more interaction with me. It's kind of both middle ticket. It's like herbal programs plus support because I don't want anybody trying to figure out their own herbs. And then high ticket is I give you as much help as you want. I create meal plans. I will do the herbs. I will set up your schedule. I will look at your phone usage so I find the time for you to take care of yourself. Mm-hmm. I have more like CEO, like high functioning women, like power women. And I can see what's happening when I look at their schedules and try to plug in 10 minutes of self-care and 20 minutes here, but not ridiculous. So the podcast for me this is what I'm trying to direct more of my programs asynchronous coaching. They're busy. I'm busy. I want them to listen when they want to listen to me, not when they have to show up on a call, especially live group calls. Oh my gosh. I work with people in Africa. How are they going to come on a call with my LA people? Like it's not working. I would have just a couple people show up and then complaints because they didn't want to watch the video.
Right. Or they didn't know where it was, or they forgot, they lost their login. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's on their cell phones, right? How frustrating is that to watch a Zoom call on your cell phone? So that's kind of where I'm at.
This is really helpful. So yes to all of that. I feel that so deeply in my bones. A couple of follow-up questions though, because I want to make sure our listeners just understand a little bit more about kind of how you lead people through. And obviously, you probably work with people at all of these different levels. So you do have people that, purchase that low ticket offer, which I think we said was around $27. Is that true?
Yes. And this is really new. I mean, I just set this up in the last, I think in the new year.
Oh, perfect.
Actually. Yeah. So, and then side note, I was sick for like 6 weeks of the promotion. I was like, darn it. Wish I would have gotten those ads out before I lost my voice for a month.
I hear you there.
Yeah. So I have people at different levels, and it's been good for me because I'm seeing what I like and don't like, what kind of person I am, how I love helping women take care of their health and feel more empowered and more in control. Because mostly when they come to me, they're just like, do I have any other options? And I'm like, oh my goodness, yes, we do. Yes, we do. So it's nice to go back and forth. And I really like to be able to send them private messages that they can listen to when they have time. Because sometimes they're like, I can't make that. And I'm like, I just don't want to get my Zooms canceled when I really want to help somebody, and they're like, I can't. And I'm like, oh. So low ticket, I've got just a few people, and the one that I kind of launched, right? It's sitting there waiting to be loved. And then I created a private podcast as well. That's $9 a month. And I want to keep that there. And that is set up as it's connected to Telegram, because I do feel it's important to also have a private community. That's also where they submit their questions.
Yeah, that's nice.
So that's the primary focus of having the private community and the questions. And with Hello Audio, it's awesome because I answer their questions privately and I theme them. And then they can just go, they don't have to log in. They just go into Hello Audio and they can select based on the title. They can tell where their answer is going to be. And then I have like bonus, like a fertility quiz for international trivia kind of stuff, like fun stuff. Because infertility can get heavy for people. So I'll just like throw in like a trivia podcast every week for them to listen to if they're like, oh, lighten it up a little bit. Cool. Check out what the women are doing in West Africa or India or, So that's where I'm at. And then right now I don't have it built, but I do want to work Hello Audio into my middle tier. And that's where I'm going. All those 24 hours and plus of courses that I made for all these, you had to log in programs and video. I'm going to make all of those available in Hello Audio, and that will be part of my middle tiers. Hopefully they, I feel like they'll listen, right? And then when they get on a call with me or in the group, then there's going to be like a lot more engagement because they'll have some background and they'll know exactly where to go when they've got questions because I'm not in there all the time. But, I think it's going to be really good. I'm excited. So that's kind of where I want to focus now. High ticket is like a totally different animal.
Yeah.
Right? I want to get them in with either the low ticket or, I'm building like my secret podcast. Those are my entry points.
I just want to clarify too. I understand that the $27, that's your 7-day fertility fast track. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. And then $9 a month. Does that have a name? I want to make sure I get it. I'm referring to it correctly.
Yep. I've got Fertility Unlocked, and I call it my private interactive podcast because it's interactive, because the content that comes weekly is based on what's asked in my community. So now it's like, it's ideal, right?
They could get feedback.
Yeah. When you're putting out organic content, you're like, well, I think they want to know about this. Now it's like, okay, these are really specific questions and I'm going to answer you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like that.
I love it. So kind of like that Q&A feed that we talk about a lot on the show.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And the middle tier sounds like you've done so much work and you've invested so much time in creating these courses. And, so you've got intellectual property, you've got these assets, and that should be relatively easy to turn into digital assets or audio assets, kind of being able to, people can purchase a la carte based on their needs. So it sounds like your middle tier is going really well. So talk to me now about the Secret podcast. So talk to me a little bit about what you're thinking about it. And if you've got your content plan or strategy mapped out, or even if you have questions or what you're unsure of, let's dig into that a little bit more, because I assume this is going to be your lead magnet.
Yeah. And I have other lead magnets, but I like the idea. I don't know who, because I listen to your podcast every week. So all the ideas just kind of merge together. But I really like the idea. What I'm going to do now is I probably have like 8 to 10 lead magnets. I don't even know if people are looking at them. So what I'm doing now is I'm going back and I'm doing a walk through the lead magnet with me. So they don't even have to look at it if they're like, I can't look at a PDF, right? I'm just going to talk about the PDF with them, or they can sit there and look at it and listen at the same time. So like, that's my next step. So I have a bunch of lead magnets already that are working. Like my email list is building, but I really would like the Secret podcast, because I think if they can learn about how I work, it's not this big mystery. There's a loss of trust going on. And it's like, yeah, you can see, what can you learn from like a 30-second reel? Really? If you just keep back to back to back, it's just like fire hose in many directions.
And then you get shown other people's content saying the opposite. And you're just like, shit, like, yeah.
Who do I believe?
Who do I believe?
Way, it's like, get to know me. But like, I don't care. I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about helping you. This is the language I use. If this resonates with you, I invite you to work with me. If it doesn't resonate with you, like, unsubscribe from my channel, because this is what I'm talking about on Instagram and YouTube.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Like, I think it's fair. And I think that's the challenge, is when we try to get to know somebody. Like, I don't really use Facebook, but I'm going to use it as like my Facebook life. It's like, you're going to see my Instagram life and my YouTube life, but that's not, I don't know that I express myself as well on those channels. I think with a private podcast, I'm more relaxed with it. And I think they're way more fun. And you can record in your pajamas.
Yeah, amen to that. We've both done that.
Yep,
for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, it does come across as more authentic, more conversational, just kind of like you're talking to a friend. And that is typically very different than the performative nature, or just social media in general doesn't always come across as genuine or as natural, I guess is maybe the other word to use there.
Right. Okay, so and you're getting like hit with all the ads.
Oh, constantly.
Right?
Yes.
Constantly. And they're saying, what do you have to
There's interruption. There's interruption.
Constant interruption. And now somebody has to see you like 18 times or something now. It's like, why not just hang out with me on my private podcast? And if by the third one you don't like me, Like,
right.
Oh, yes. That's not going to work for me. I don't think I can do that. Or I don't want to do that. You know what I mean?
It's a lot of effort, I think, too. And with the lifespan of a social media post compared to a podcast that's on your phone, that's with someone 24/7, that's just, it's a different access point and a different visibility lever, I think.
Absolutely.
A couple questions on what you're positioning the Secret podcast. So and the reason I'm asking, just for clarification, is because if you've got a bunch of lead magnets, and it sounds like you're doing exactly what we teach in Launch Your Audio Lead Magnet, and we'll put that in the show notes for anyone that's interested in launching a lead magnet. One of the types is to walk through a PDF. So if you have PDFs, this is great. It's just turning it into a private podcast by being able to walk through it. And to your point, when you do it really well, like you're doing, the person doesn't even necessarily need to have the PDF in front of them to get value out of it or to walk through it. Or, as Lindsay always says too, it's like sometimes we're not at a point where we can print it out, and repetition is really that key to learning. I can hear you walking through it in the car when I'm at, carpool or sitting in line to pick up my kid from soccer. And when I put, they go to sleep and I've got 30 minutes for myself, now I've got that piece of paper or that PDF, and I can, already kind of recall what you had said in the car. And I'm a lot more likely to be intimidated by it and maybe just complete it. So that's great. And if you've got lead magnets that you know are working, that are growing your email list, I think all of those are great. And I'm assuming you're creating those because they probably solve a specific problem or address a specific perceived need, that you're going to keep those as a separate feed for each lead magnet because the topics are different. Is that true?
Exactly. Yes. Each
Perfect.
one of those will have a separate, like if you're needing help with egg quality, or
Right.
if you're like, no, I'm good with egg quality. I have endometriosis. I have a ton of pain. I don't want to have surgery. Like those are really different.
Very different.
You know, and I think that's where a lot of us get stuck in the beginning. Is like we fire hose, like, I can help you with everything. And I'm like, no, I want them to be able to go to the store and take this. That's what like is helpful is in the, like, I'll have a link to the PDF, you know, in the walkthrough and say like, this is the grocery list. And if you want to make these recipes, like here it is. Cause I have like 7-day fertility meal plans, you know, vegetarian, non-vegetarian, endometriosis diet, like whatever. I just want them to be able to walk in the store and click that link even. They don't have to print it out and just go, I like those foods. Like this is my yes list. So I'm going to buy this. They can actually just do that. They don't have to go into their Google Drive or whatever. Like it'll be linked in there.
It's just all right there in one place. Yeah, I like that. And I like the fact that they're separate because we're meeting people where they're at, and people are at different places based on what they've got going on and what their perceived needs are. And I know for some people, it could be also just a general, like, I don't know and I'm trying to figure that out. I am trying to, you know, like at that part of their journey, because we're all at, you know, those different stages. The secret podcast, then, are you looking at that as more of and I'm going to use a phrase here, kind of like an authority amplifier, or more of like in an evaluation, like, I think I want to work with this person, but I really want to I need to get to know Dr. Gina more. Is that what that asset is versus what like a lead magnet is, where it's solving a specific problem? Is that what kind of you're envisioning that secret podcast objective to be?
Yes. Yes. I want them to understand why I got into this medicine. And it's really an introduction to me, but it's not about me because it's about them. But I will show the path that drove me to study holistic medicine, like being put through the ringer of Western medicine. I'm not anti-Western medicine. I say that all the time. I also am certified in integrative medicine, so I can understand what Western medicine is trying to do. And sometimes I'm like, you know, okay, let's go over. So I can have a educational like conversation with the patient if I just know one side. So I want them to understand, like, I get where you're coming from and I understand what your doctor is saying to you. And I want to show you how we could either like sync that together. That's something that doesn't get across on social media sometimes, because I think I tend to do things more presentation. You know, I might say something, but I may not tell a story. But in the podcast, I'm going to say, this is how I got into this type of medicine. This is why I chose it. This is why, if you're using Western medicine and you're frustrated, I was too. This is why I'm here. And then they're like, oh, okay. So she does get me, even if it's not the exact path that they're on, right? But I get them because I had the same frustrations. And then I get to introduce them to my framework. As I'm weaving in the stories, like you said, like, how do I get started? And I cover that. Well, if you worked with me, these are the first areas I would explore. I'm not going to give you 10 things when we hang up the phone or consultation. Right. This is where we're going to start because this is realistic. But it's personalized. If you're like, I hate cooking, fine. I'm not going to hand you a 30-day meal plan with recipes, okay? Right. I did that when I first got out of school. Everybody thought I was like, you know, psycho. I was going to say another word, but whatever. Like, you have to do it this way. It's like, no, I'm flexible. But I also have awareness of, this is your medical history that you're showing up with. This is what has to change. The only way X, Y, and Z is going to happen is a minimum of boom, boom, boom. You know, so it is better, as always, with all businesses. You get personalized attention. You can sit here and sift through it for several years, or I could work with you every month adjusting tweaks. Save yourself time and frustration and tears, you know? So I want to get that across in my secret podcast. This is my personality. I'm nurturing. I'm also, like, I live on the top of a mountain in Colorado, but I'm from Philly.
Okay, I like that. That's
Go
great.
Eagles. Go Birds. So like there's a touch of tough love, and it's only for accountability. People can Google, they can chat, they can do whatever and get the most generic advice.
Sure.
But I'm the one who's going to say, you don't need that. You don't need those 17 supplements that you just bought from that influencer.
Yeah.
Don't need that.
I like this. Okay, so here's how I would approach something like this. So I love, you have so many pieces and so many assets in your ecosystem between the lead magnets, your low ticket offers, the mid ticket offers, and obviously you've got the established high ticket one-on-one, work with people. So you've got so many pieces. I think where this secret podcast is going to fit in is truly allowing people to get to know you, to get to know your methodology or your framework that you use, your approach set a different way. I think it allows them to understand your credentials. That's why when I use the phrase, I call this like authority amplifier, is because it helps people understand that it's a demonstration of your ability to help them. And we do that through, not only talking about your background, which is clearly extensive. You clearly have a ton of credentials. You've helped a lot of people. So a lot of that content kind of goes into this. Also, your approach in the sense that it is that mix of love and a little bit of tough love. And I think in being very caring, because as we all know on this call, this is not going to be the first thing they have bought to try to fix this problem.
I would usually be the last resort.
Yes.
I've never been the first resort.
Right. Yeah.
Ever. Not once, especially with fertility.
Yeah.
Yes.
They've gotten burned so many times, or something just didn't work.
Yeah.
Right.
So like, how am I different?
A lot of variables. Yes.
Yeah.
How
am
I
many
different?
Variables.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's how I would approach this. Here's how I would structure the content. In any private podcast, to be fair, in any content marketing piece, we have to meet someone where they're at and talk about their known need. Like, we can't have epiphanies for them. You clearly, with your awareness level and your education and your experience, you know so much more than the person who's saying, yes, I would like to listen to this, right? And we need to be able to help them have those epiphanies as we go. We can't say, it's not this. I know you think it's this, but it's actually that, because we need to be able to demonstrate that through this content. This is just like marketing content. And that's how we're shifting false beliefs. We're establishing new beliefs. We're addressing underlying fears, and we're shifting some emotions, which, could be from hesitation or fear to confidence and hope, and, all the things that they need to be most likely to invest in you. And it doesn't matter what investment that is. Okay. It could be that membership, the Fertility Unlocked interactive. It could be maybe they dip their toe in the water and do the 7-day fertility fast track, or they jump straight to high ticket, because people will do that too when they're in enough pain, and they will pay. This is something that, people will pay for something like this. This is about the content in this private podcast is about leading with empathy. So it's about demonstrating that you understand where they're at. If it were me, I like to call out that they've probably tried things in the past. And I also want to make sure that they understand, and I'm giving them, because some people will come to that content thinking they've done something wrong, they've wasted a bunch of money. Like, there's a lot of shame and a lot of baggage and a lot of stuff that they're bringing in. And so we need to be able to start chipping some of that away through this leading with empathy, and also helping them understand that this approach is new. We're trying to shift that mindset a bit, because if they're not open to what's about to happen in following episodes, right, they're never going to kind of continue. So that's kind of episode 1 in my mind is always, and it doesn't always have to be episode 1, but I'm going to try to break this down as clearly as I can, is always going to be like talking about the client's struggle, talking about their desired outcome. I want to establish empathy. I want them to feel understood. And I also want them to see or believe, I want to start establishing the belief that there is a path forward for them. They don't know what that is yet. That's fine. I don't need to get into a ton of detail, but I want them to believe that there's a path forward so that they'll continue listening. That's a big deal for them in that. And then typically in episode 2, I start talking about the path. And I want you to think about the way I typically would articulate this content. It's all stats, facts, and stories. Okay, that's typically the 3 go-tos. And it's sure you've got statistics. I mean, you're a doctor. I don't know how many research papers you've read, guessing it's probably more than me. And there's a lot of research out there. There's a lot of things that you can point to. There's also a lot of stories, not only your own story, which will resonate with people, but stories of people that you work with. Obviously, there's privacy. You change people's names. You talk about general, things that have happened, but stories that they can relate to because they're experiencing the same thing. And so when we talk about, where you're going to introduce yourself, I mean, a lot of times it's natural because it comes up in a story. Or becomes it, it's a way to lead with empathy and say, I went through the same thing myself, or I've worked with hundreds of women who have gone through this in 8, different continents, or whatever that looks like for you, right? It's like you get to kind of start dropping the ability to demonstrate you can help them. So episode 2 in my brain is mapping that path. And so you can introduce your unique methodology here or a framework that you use. You talk about the approach between integrative medicine and Western medicine and why both are needed in your opinion. Like this is where you kind of lean into your approach and why you believe, like why your approach works. And this is where people start to have those epiphanies because they'll be like, oh, I can see why both are needed and I can understand how they work together. And like all of this can help them have those epiphanies to help them, continue to work together. And I think this is where listeners really start to understand the pieces, not in a ton of detail. You don't need to go into a ton of detail, but if they can see the big chunks, the big steps of what it looks like. And as in stuff like this, it's never cookie cutter, right? There might be some common factors that you might recommend and see if things work. I think if they feel seen and they feel heard and they feel like you've worked with so many different nuances, because everyone feels like they're nuanced in some way, right? Because they've tried the standard approach and it doesn't work or whatever. I think that's a big deal. And so for me, that episode is all about giving them more clarity into the path forward. And it's your path and it's why it works. And it's helping them feel hopeful about what's to come. So I like that part of it. I typically will follow this with some case studies or use cases or things like that. It's because I've just kind of given them the path. And now usually what happens is a listener's going to be like, okay, I get it. All right. And they're excited. And then all of a sudden they go, well, wait a minute. Is this really going to work for me? Right. Like they're, it's like that second guessing piece, but this is where you can demonstrate through those case studies or through if you have audio testimonials from, people you've worked with in the past and they're willing to share their audio, they don't even need to share their name. And if you don't have that, don't let that hold you back. You can absolutely share it. This is, again, the story-based types of things just to help demonstrate your ability to help that variety of people or variety of situations because of your background is so extensive, because you have the ability. I
have to say that I love that. And I've never I've struggled with testimonials. I have never thought about getting an audio testimonial with no name. That's
super powerful.
My head off. Thank you. Goodbye. No, I'm like,
yeah, we're done.
But that is super powerful.
Because I feel like, and it is, you have to know, like, I've been practicing for 25 years, right? And people weren't even really using Google. What's Google?
Nope.
I was like one of the first people with a website in my whole zone in California where I was. So I never
You're going to be the first one with audio testimonials in a private podcast.
But I never, and so, COVID and all that stuff happened, whatever. But I was like, oh my God, I have not been getting testimonials. And then all of a sudden everybody's like, you have to have testimonials. And then having a brick and mortar and then shifting to online, I was like, oh man, that was a huge leap that I didn't see coming. But the audio testimonials, I will feel very comfortable asking for those.
Nice. Yes. Yeah. Audio, it's easier. I mean, because I don't want to necessarily show up on camera all the time. That's not fun. But audio feels easy. The best testimonials, this pro tip on the testimonials, anything that can articulate the before and after. Right. It's one thing for people to say, Dr. Gina is amazing. I think she's the bomb and I feel so much better. But it's another thing for them to walk in the depths of hell and explain what they were dealing with before they work with you. And then the transformation of what they feel like, what their life is like, their relation, like all the things that your work helps transform. That's a very different and much more powerful audio clip or testimonial than just stating the positive part of it. So I do want the before and the after, just
Yeah.
if at all possible.
Yeah. And that makes sense because a lot of women that come to me, they've been trying to get pregnant, not for a year or two. It's been 5 or 6 or 8 years. And I do have that as part of the audiobook that sounds similar to the layout, but yours is, more updated version, definitely with the audio testimonials. But just telling the story of, look, this woman came to me, she had 8 failed IVF transfers, 8.
Oh, wow.
And then this is what we did. But it's like, this is what she wanted to do. This is what we did together. And then we did herbal medicine. And, I give kind of like, this is how she showed up. This is what we make the plan together.
Yes.
And she relies on me for my medical knowledge, but I'm relying on her to tell me what kind of time do you have? She was a lawyer. I'm like, first ever. And I was like, how are we going to get all this in your day? And we did. And it actually was way more simple. It didn't have to be so complicated with this massive plan. And like, that's something you need personally to get from somebody. But that's what I want to share in testimonials is like, look, it only took me 20 minutes a day. Plus I had I did these herbs and then I actually really liked the meditation. So then I started doing, you know what I mean? Like,
yes,
show the journey.
Yep.
Yes. That's
and
exactly.
then of course we want the outcome. Everybody's like, well, did she get pregnant? It's like, but look at all the other benefits that happened along the way.
Yes.
And so the other thing is showing like, after you take care of somebody, then they get pregnant. And that's a whole other story, right? So you want to set up like all the healthy, like 10 minutes here, 5 minutes here before you get pregnant. Because if you roll into pregnancy unprepared, as some of us know, it's a whole different ballgame. So anyway, it's like setting up the steps. But that is great for testimonials, showing the process of how we got there.
The stories are really powerful. And then actually what you just brought up is what I would cover in the next segment, which is just addressing all of these I'll call them underlying fears. You can call them sales objections. You can call them hesitations. We can call them whatever we want. But like, I don't have time is going to be one of the biggest ones. So like a plan that fits your schedule, right? Yeah. It's going to be, I bet you could probably, you know your clients better than I do. You could probably rattle off your top 10 from all the sales calls or conversations you've had with folks over the years, like the objections or the underlying fears that they would have. Like, this is going to be, I'm not going to follow the plan. It's all the stuff that maybe hasn't even worked for them too, that contribute to this. But this is where you call out, where we have to, as much as you possibly can, we have to call out the fear. We don't just like dance around it. We actually like, the more you can name it, the more specific you can be, the more that listener hears, well, that's exactly what I would have thought. Or like, have that same question. Like, how did she know? That's exactly what I was thinking. The more powerful that content's going to be.
Yeah, I like that. I think people are often, and I was really intimidated, but now it's like, well, what's holding you back? I'll ask, like, what's holding you back? And I would have to say right away, the easiest one is, I got to talk to my husband.
Yes.
I filter with when they schedule consultations. If he's part of the decision, he has to be on the phone call.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Do not book a phone call with me if I got to repeat this entire thing to somebody else. Yes. Or if he's going to talk you out.
Expect you to repeat it. But yeah, totally.
But yeah, they're going to present it to him in 5 sentences. So I'm like, no, I want him there so he can ask me the questions as well.
Yes.
Like, that's one of the big ones. And the money and the time and is this going to work for me? Like the usual.
The usual stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like I came from corporate. So like, yes, the multiple stakeholder issue. Yes. So it's like, and whether, your significant other, your spouse, your partner, your husband, all of it, it's like that you could absolutely address that in that episode by talking about, if you're sitting there and you're thinking like, I need to get my significant other on board with this, because this is, have them listen to this. Like you can share this with them. I put a PDF resource or a link in the resource in the show notes.
Or you could have an episode that you like actually specifically talk to them.
Cool.
Say, this episode isn't for you. This is for your partner. That would be cool.
I think we both just got that at the same time, like light bulb. Because I haven't thought about adding a specific episode. And it's funny because I was just talking to my husband and it's like, we get men's journal and then we get women's magazines. And years ago, I like before, right around the beginning of Google, I was like, what do men? Because I was targeting both. And then they like bullets and lots of titles and photos. Yep. And so if I do a thing, it's going to be 5 minutes long. Like
it's perfect.
That's if I do an audio for them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, women love just to get all the details, and I love to give the details, but for men, it's definitely a different conversation most of the time, right?
Most of the time, yeah.
That'd be cool if you got some partner testimonials too.
Yes, yeah, very much so.
Because they can see the other side of, the woman that they're supporting. I think a lot of times with fertility, like, because it's not men and they're just like, how can I help? At least that's how my husband was like, what can I do? And it's like, they want to be involved, but there isn't often the opportunity. I mean, this could be an option for like a whole other feed, like possibly.
Right.
It could be.
Yeah.
Well,
and I can see a woman like trusting someone who's also thinking about that person too. Because I think, especially if they've been doing this a long time, there's the relationship that's involved with this. I know women that struggle with infertility. This causes a lot of issues in relationships. So someone who also focused on that would just be a like, I've never, I haven't involved him in this part of the journey, right? Like,
and I think the husband is like, you're buying another program.
Yeah, totally.
You're working with someone like, they're all saying the same thing. You know what I mean? Because they haven't been able to take the time or given the opportunity to understand what we're working on. So it was easier when I had a clinic because I would say, I want your husband to come to the first.
Yeah, they would come to appointments. Yeah.
Sometimes they didn't. And I'm like, that's fine. And some of them both would get treated. But, men are, 35+% responsibility for infertility
of the problem.
They don't want to hear it though.
No, 100%. Yeah.
Even if the woman is like targeted as we got to work on her and do all these things, it's like, it's hard to work with a woman who is doing everything she can. She's, oh my gosh, she's tried everything. She's doing yoga. She's eating well. Now she wants to do the herbs. And her husband's like, it's not me. And he's like having beers with the boys and not exercising and eating like burgers. And this is like, legit, I hear this all the time. And I'm like, hey, you know what? Your sperm need to stay healthy.
Might not be so ideal right now either. Yeah.
We're not just taking supplements for your sperm, mister. Like it's a partnership. So that is I love that idea. I love that. I'm definitely going to at least have one episode.
Yeah, at least. Definitely.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. And this doesn't have to be super long because after you go through that, you can, like the way I typically would design this is the next one is a very clear call to action / next step. And for you, that might be, there are 3 different ways that you can work with me, or there are 3 typical ways that people work with me, this, and this. And the only thing I will say is that if you give them 3 different options, I typically don't give more than 3. You could probably do maybe 4 without an impact to conversions, but the options have to be clear. You want this, if this. You want that one, if that, right? So because if there's any confusion, they just don't take action. So just make sure that that's really clear. But the next step is always, this episode or this content tends to future pace. This is about, and I'm not talking about the bro marketer BS, like imagine, like what if this could only do this, like what would that be worth for you? Like none of that shit, right? But it's like, this is very much to help them future pace and visualize because I want them, this is part emotion. So here I want them to have that shift so that they start to feel relief before they get relief. I want them to be able to, in their nervous system, to kind of feel what it would be like to work with someone who has answers, who has done this before. It's like just from a buyer psychology, I want them to experience a taste of that because I need their nervous system to be in a place where they feel like I want them to make a decision from that. I am not the type of marketer that wants them to make a decision from fear or shame. Yeah. I don't love that, but I want them to feel, I just want that shift in their nervous system so that they are in a very good place in a confident place when they make that decision to work with you. Whatever options you give them in that episode, I think is fine.
Okay. I feel like I could definitely direct them in 2 to 3 ways, clearly.
Yes.
And realistically, And I think that's something, being on social media, you kind of like hold back a little in the beginning, and I'm getting comfortable now to say, hey, if you've been trying to get pregnant for 5 years, like the $97 DIY, like don't do it.
Right.
Don't do it. Either this is the option, and it's not going to be another 5 years till you're pregnant, kind of a thing, but not make them feel bad. But just say, look, I want to save you time. I want to save you frustration and money. I don't want you to go through another disappointment and have to explain to your husband like, ah, crap, that didn't work.
Yep.
Okay. I like that.
And it could be, you could frame that as, depending if you're at this point in your journey, which maybe they're just at the beginning, then that's fine. If they've had 8 miscarriages or they can't get pregnant or whatever that looks like to them, right? Like that's a different journey. And just being able to explain that in terms of, if your timeline is really important to you, and there's a way to frame that so that it's not rooted in like fear or shame.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't like that. Like, picture yourself pregnant.
Oh my God.
And it's like,
what would you like your life to look like a year from now? Oh, they're just trying to figure out today. Like, what? But no, I like that. That's usually how I cap it. Now, I'm not done because I add 2 bonus episodes to this is typically what I would do. So that I usually I do the call to action in the next steps. And then I have, I'll call them optional episodes. And so sometimes, and you can use this, you can put them in immediately in the feed. The other things we talk about and we'll coach our users is that you can add this in later on as a reactivation, right? Because when that private podcast is sitting on your phone, if you add an episode and you can email them and say, I just added a new episode, it's a training, it's a 15-minute training or a 20-minute training, whatever that is, it's a nice way to re-engage and reactivate some leads. So you don't have to put these right away. I like the reactivation or re-engagement type of option. But that next episode I usually will do is like a training or a deep dive into something specific. It's like a bonus. It's a nice value add. I love it, especially if you're doing one-on-one or you're kind of an expert listening to this and you're in kind of an expert related field. I just love them being able to experience you being an expert, whether that's a presentation, a podcast that you were on, a clip of that, whatever you have that just demonstrates all of your amazing knowledge. That's what I like this clip to be, if at all possible. So I like adding that. And then, depending on, you can always add that next. You can so you could do 2 things. One, you could have that training there as a value add and just keep it there and then use a different one as a reactivation later. Those are usually the 2 optional episodes I have. And then the other thing I would add, if you want to keep that one as a reactivation, the second one is yet another reactivation, and it could just be like timely. So it might be like launch specific or a window or a new offer, or, you get to decide what that looks like. But I think I would do up to 2 reactivations in that feed, and they're completely optional. So don't feel like you even have to do any of it. I think that the core episodes in and of itself help people, take action and choose the next step. But not everyone's going to be ready, or they're going to be worried, or, whatever. They're dealing with grief, or like, good luck making a decision when you're grieving. Like, that's not super fun. And so these are ways to gently bring people back with integrity to, the buying conversation, with adding a lot of value to them as well, which I like that style better.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm sure like I'll figure it out, the pacing of it, but just curious, like, would you do a bonus like a week later and then a second bonus like another week later?
It depends. So with this, I also like to have, they would be getting emails, right? Whatever that looks like, a nurture sequence, or, in some cases, I might do it 2 weeks later. I could see it, depending on your time. I don't know how long your sales cycle typically is in terms of like them getting to know you and them closing in one of these offers. But I would probably say within that month is usually when I would drop the first one, even if it's closer to that 30-day mark. I still like to kind of, because it was top of mind for them, they raised their hand within that month. I would like to think that it's still active. And then I would say usually I would drop the other one within the quarter. Although we have absolutely had people that had this lead magnet and they're like, yeah, I still have people that downloaded that from last January. I'm like, well, have you added to it recently? Maybe we should do that. Because I did, they did a launch last January and it went really well. And now they're redoing it. And I'm like, we should probably refresh some of that content and it's still sitting in their podcast player. So let's get those folks on board as well. So there's multiple ways to look at it, but the first one typically within 30 days, just because I like to keep it top of mind.
Yeah, for sure.
Usually that's the structure I use when I design these types of assets, these audio assets, and they're truly designed to help people get to know you, your approach, your style, understand your ability to help them, demonstrate your authority, your credentials, your experience, just all of that. And that shifts their perspective, helping them maybe shift some beliefs on, what they need, or help them have some epiphanies around things that they need to believe in order to be most likely to invest in you, right? Mm-hmm. Because there's going to be people that if they have the belief that Western medicine is the only way to go, maybe they're not the best fit for you, and that's fine. I like being able to architect this content so that I'm including and I'm also excluding the right people for you as well. So that's how I would approach it.
Yeah, I think like all of this sounds exactly right up my alley. It was just interpreting it and putting it into the secret podcast, right? I don't want it to be a waste because I've got on some and I'm like, God, they're selling me the whole time. And I don't want it to feel like that. I want them to feel like, this is interesting and this sounds like me.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And like, I never, just like with me talking to you, it's like, I've done a ton of marketing and coaching, all this stuff. And it's like, I'm getting light bulbs, it's, you just have to be open to receive them. And you're right. If somebody's not, and it's not like they're doing it intentionally. They're just at that time, they're not open to receive somebody's help or to be on that track. It's having the big conversations. I have those right out of the gates. I want to make sure that they're ready to work with me. Yes. Not intense. I'm just, I want to know. I mean, I think you just get that with experience, is just finding where people are. And like for me, I would never want to talk somebody into working with me.
Right.
I don't want them to come back 2 weeks later and go, this isn't working. It's like, well, I know, because we just started.
Yeah, it's 2 weeks. Yeah.
I want them to go. And I've had people, and I know they're like, you got to close. I'm like, I'm not a closer. I'm a welcomer.
Yeah. I invite people. But you can do that. Like through these episodes, I think your methodology, especially that episode and that content around your process, I think we set realistic timelines, and that can be arranged. You don't have to, it's not exact. I mean, dear Lord, if we could have exact science, we'd all be millionaires, but we'd be like in 4 weeks, like that doesn't work like that. Yeah. But I think you can give people, on average, or, the timeline varies for everyone, as I'm sure you can understand, because of all of these different factors. And I think that helps people come to you when they are ready to work with you with a lot more realistic expectations too, which we all know because we've all, I think, worked with clients on this, right? For all of you listening, realistic expectations is part of the biggest thing of having a great client relationship. And so this podcast can help with that as well.
Yeah. And I think that's like the key of every podcast, trying to help to solve at least like one small problem.
Yes.
When I first started online, I was like, but they're trying to get pregnant. I can't help them do that with a lead magnet. It was like, break it down. What are you doing the first hour that you wake up? Oh, I can help with that.
Right.
But I really had to, it was so different from practicing in person,
Yes.
But I feel like every time you talk to people, I learn more and more about what women want when they're in this. And they're all different, right? I mean, they're just every single person. And I love it because it's like detective work.
Yes. That is the fun part.
You got to figure out how you can help them to feel good about the journey again when they've gotten burned, or maybe they've had miscarriages. Like it's not an easy journey if you've been on it for a long time. So I don't want them to go, oh God, I got to do this for how many years? It's like, no, we could literally just work together for 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
And this is what it looks like,
And that's exactly what they need to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not going to be 3 more years or whatever, whatever their situation, unfortunately, they've had so far. And I don't want them bringing the baggage in, which is hard. That's a whole other process that we work through. Yeah. This is awesome. I think I do have one question.
Sure.
So this, I think will be helpful to other people, but this is something for me. It's like, I don't ever want to overwhelm people with all the different options and just trying to feel where they're at. And I like you saying, like, don't give them more than 3 ways to work with me.
Yeah.
But sometimes people, it's like I get all these messages and I'm like, well, deciding, do I send them a low ticket? But this person actually sounds like they're asking for my middle. Like they actually want more support. So yeah, I guess that's what I'm wondering. And really, I'm just doing the mentioning of offers in my last episode, or is it?
I would have them in the show notes all the time. So in every episode, I have them in the show notes. And here's how I would articulate it. You've probably seen this. It's not super obvious in some people's emails, but if you look, they'll call them like cookie crumbs or breadcrumbs. At the bottom of people's emails, it'll say like their footer or their signature. It'll say there's 3 ways you can work with me, or there's, X ways you can work with me. That's the language I want you to have in the show notes in every episode.
Okay.
And that's the biggest thing you can work on when you're working through the messaging for that call to action episode. It's just almost like understanding what are the qualifications. If I was really sitting like it's someone who is experiencing this or super like this offer is for the person who wants this, who values this, who cares about that. It's like, I want you to brainstorm that messaging because that's going to help you write that. And it's going to help you make sure it's super clear. Then what I would do, if you're not sure if it's clear, I would take it to someone that you've been working with for a while and then put it in front of them and they have them give you feedback. Like, is this really clear? Who, which offer is for which person, and just even a stranger, you could ask, like, is that really clear? And as long as that's clear, it won't impact your conversions. If it's unclear, it will.
Right. I love that because I have the PS, these are 3 ways to work with me, right? And it's my fertility fast track, and I just have a little blip. But it didn't occur to me to maybe also add in, if you're just starting or if you're just getting back onto your start here.
Yep.
If you're like, well, I kind of want to check you out, then do the audit. And that's a 1-to-1, one-off. That's the only time I'll do a one-off with somebody. And I go through their entire fertility journey. And then if you're ready to dive in, you're like, I want to learn how I work with you, then this is where you book the consultation for the one-on-one support, learn about the herbs, and the program, and ask me questions. Like,
that's
tell me your fertility journey. I want to hear that. And then
always frame it from their standpoint too.
For sure. Yeah.
Right. It's like if you are looking for some your insights into what's going on in your journey, then it's the audit. If you're just ready to go deeper and to fast track, or accelerate, use like those, that's the one-on-one part. So there's ways that you could be like, yes, I care about timeline. I'm ready to go deep. I'm not going to mess around with this anymore. Versus, I would like some insights into, personalized insights as to what's going on with my fertility. So the audit sounds like right. Or if I'm just dipping my toe in the water, then if I'm just getting started, that's where the fast track, not to copyright on the fly, but if you want this or you're interested in this, that's how I would frame those.
And then in that message, would you have the price point? Because I feel like sometimes people won't click because they're like, I can't afford it. And it's like, hey, my private podcast is only $9. I don't know if that makes it look worse. Like the audit, I kept it very low because I don't want people to be intimidated. I mean, people are selling them for a consultation for $800 or $1,000 or more. I mean, that's kind of where they start. Mine's under 200. It's like, I really just want to have the conversation to see if I can help you.
Yes.
Yeah,
you could test it both ways and see. You could say, and with one-on-one, I mean, obviously, I don't know if you have set pricing because it all depends on how long people want to work with. Like if I'm doing consulting and it's custom, I have no idea. Like I've got to figure out what you actually need me to do. Right. And so you could say starting at, like that's one way you could phrase that. Because you do want to make sure they understand it's a more significant investment. So you don't get people showing up thinking like you're $100 an hour or something like that. Like that's right. You don't want that. But I do think there's a way that you could test it. And if you see a lot of people clicking the link and landing on the page and seeing the price, then that to me is a separate issue to solve. But I at least knew that they were interested when they click through.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just have to do some testing.
Yeah. That's the fun part once you get there.
Once I get my traffic.
That's right.
That's the thing. So put my secret podcasts everywhere.
Everywhere. Yeah. Yes. And with you specifically, I could see you guesting on podcasts and being able to link to this for sure. Even, I mean, I know PR is a whole mess of sometimes, but with your credentials, that's probably easier than you would think, because doctors do tend to, I don't know if you've ever looked at like the emails that come through that are looking to, help a reporter out and all that kind of, which is now back, I think. And just some of the other similar ones, they always want credentialed, like an actual physician, right? Like that. So those are potentially some opportunities for you to get some traffic to push back to this too, but links everywhere. Yes.
I'll say that is the thing, is PR has been, and this is my year of visibility, and that is what I've been avoiding.
Yeah.
And it's not, I take it back. I'm not avoiding it. I've been prioritizing content, which I have so much, it's like, I'm starting to write a book. I'm like, I have so much content, put this into a book and then I'll do a podcast. But I think working on those at the same time. And then that would be great, because when I'm doing podcasts, they're listening to a podcast. I could say,
correct.
The one lead magnet at the end is like, if you want to learn more, then check out my free podcast, my secret podcast. So that was just very natural transition.
Yes, that's exactly. Yeah. I think there'll be more opportunities that open up, I think, too, with traffic. I mean, you could always start to run ads. I would highly recommend looking at even where people are having these discussions. I know I'm going to say Reddit and I'm going to instantly regret it, but that shows up high for SEO and things like that.
And Quora.
People pay attention. Yes. And that too. And so if you can carve out some time, it takes a little bit of sweat equity to do those types of things. But I do think that they do sometimes pay off, especially if you're like, you know what, I want to hold off on paid ads. Then those types of, organic sweat equity traffic sources are really good to start with.
Yeah. I think a combo, like I'm running some ads, but they're all going to my other freebies. But I've just been excited about the secret podcast. I'm like, this is what I want to do. I just hope I attract the people that are podcast listeners, because I am. So yeah. I think this will get me more fired up to do ads for this lead magnet.
Yes. Yeah. See what the organic traffic says. I mean, the cool thing is when something converts, putting money behind it is a much easier decision.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. Good point. Well,
awesome. This has been a ton of fun. I'm hoping it was helpful.
Oh, this has been so helpful. It's so nice to have somebody else give you like pan out and go boom, boom, boom. This is what you have already. You don't like. I feel like I could easily have the scripts written up in a day, half day.
With the way you take action. I
love writing, and I have so much content, and I'll just, I'll just run through it. And this has been amazing. I just want to thank both of you. And
of course,
I'm so excited I found the Hello Audio community.
Yay. We're excited you found us too. I'm excited for all the women you're going to help too.
Yeah, me too. It's so exciting.
Yeah, and they're going to actually listen. That's going to be great too.
Yeah, and they're going to listen and be super excited. And I'm just getting invited to do things, and I've been kind of like in my shell, like I don't know how to show up online, but I've been online now. I think I've been YouTubing for coming up on 2 years. I think
that's awesome.
Woo, that's so much work.
It is.
Yes, crazy amount, but I love it. And I recently got asked to present in West Africa, in Nigeria.
Wow.
Not in person. I wish. I'd love to. I'm dying to go over there.
Yeah.
But so like that's going to help me to kind of get out of my shell a little bit more and do a presentation pre-recorded. And then I'll show up live and Q&A with them. And it's going to be so much fun. Yeah. It's cool. I like internationally is my jam. My background's anthropology, and I'm like,
I love that.
Nice.
How do I pull this in? And I was like, oh my God, finally I can talk to people from around the world. Like that's all I've ever wanted to do. And it's cool because they're like, well, when you talk about fertility foods, can you like keep in mind that we're in West Africa? And I was like, heck yeah. I already have another client that her husband's from Nigeria and similar foods. So it's like, I already have a bunch of resources, and I love researching international, like how people treat and work differently. So like that's a whole other piece of it, right?
Yeah.
But that's what they would get in my private podcast. They're not going to know that. I'm not really saying that on my socials. But that would be, anyway, other conversation. But yeah.
Cool.
Awesome.
Excited.
Well, thanks for hanging out with us, and keep us posted for sure. Let us know how everything goes. And if you need any more help or support, don't hesitate to email us or see if we can help you in any other way.
That would be awesome. But yeah, I'll let you know when it's live. I'm so excited.
Yeah, definitely check it out.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
And there you have it, audio heads. Another episode of Launch Your Private Podcast is in the books. I hope you're leaving today feeling even more ready to amplify your voice and connect with your audience in meaningful ways. The adventure continues in our next episode with even more insights, strategies, and inspiration to help you along your own private podcasting journey. Of course, make sure to check out helloaudio.fm to start your own private podcast. And remember, you've got amazing content that needs to be heard. So let's turn the volume up. Until next time.